Good morning. The government initiates President Park Geun-hye's plans outlined in her televised national address. 27 measures in 5 different categories are to be carried out. The psychological aftermath of the Sewol-ho ferry disaster, from those directly affected by the tragedy to the general public, it affects all of us. On IT Plus, we'll get a look at the new kit on the smartphone block and the evolution of the GPS navigation system so you don't get lost. From the master cleanse to oil pulling and basil seed detox, the bottom line, is it good for you? On Korea Today, Tuesday, May 20th, 2014.
From Arirang News, this is Korea Today.
And good morning and nice to have you along on a Tuesday morning. I'm Kim Min-jung alongside Kim Young and Jin-ju. So many people are reacting to President Park Geun-hye's public address made yesterday in which she apologized for the Sewol-ho ferry disaster. Some are saying it's sincere, others not so much.
That's right. Following the nationally televised speech or address to the nation, the ruling Saenuri Party showed support for the president, saying that the president's apology was honest and sincere. And the ruling Saenuri Party, also expressed deep regret that they were not able to protect the people.
And the opposition party, meanwhile, said that the presidential office of Cheongwade was not taking full responsibility for the disaster and stressed that the presidential office itself should act as the crisis management control tower. But they did add that they think that the public would have felt the sincerity of the president's apology.
That's right. Mixed reactions from both the ruling and the opposition parties. And we will begin with our top story, and that is regarding the live televised address to the public regarding the Sewol-ho ferry disaster, where the president promised reforms to make South Korea a safer nation. The government initiated follow-up measures. At a meeting headed by the presidential chief of staff, Kim Ki-chun, the government categorized President Park Geun-hye's plans into 5 main sectors with 27 measures. The main categories include the restructuring of government, reforming appointment methods of government officials, and proposing a special law to the National Assembly authorizing the formation of a fact-finding committee for the ferry disaster and also establishing a national safety ministry. A monument will be dedicated to the ferry disaster victims and family members, and April 16th, the day of the disaster, will be designated People's Safety Day. Expected to be tasked first is the cabinet reshuffle upon President Park's return from the United Arab Emirates.
Meanwhile, the families of the victims of the Sewol-ho ferry disaster are set to hold a press conference on this Tuesday, issuing their stance on President Park Geun-hye's public address yesterday. An official representing the families of the bereaved, the missing, as well as the survivors told reporters that the president had reflected most of their suggestions made during their visit to the presidential office of Cheongwade, though he added dismantling the Coast Guard was largely unexpected. The official said the families regret that the president made no mention of the search operations for the 17 passengers still missing. In the meantime, the Incheon District Court will review the arrest warrant sought for Yoo Byung-un, the de facto owner of the operator of the Sewol-ho ferry, suspected of negligence and fraud. Prosecutors are looking into forcibly taking Yoo into custody when and if he rejects to appear in court for deliberation.
And just how technologically advanced is Seoul? A recent report indicates Seoul is at the top of the ladder when it comes to technological readiness, sharing the #1 spot with London, England. According to the 6th edition of PricewaterhouseCoopers 2014 Cities of Opportunity Index, Seoul shared first place with London in the category of tech readiness. Seoul ranked #1 and 2 in broadband quality and internet access on campus, respectively, and #4 in software development. Seoul also ranked 3rd in transportation infrastructure and broke into the top 10 for the first time in the category of ease of doing business. Seoul ranked 14th overall, 1 spot behind Tokyo and 5 spots ahead of Beijing. London and New York took 1st and 2nd, respectively. The index analyzes the top 30 capitals of finance, commerce, and culture and is in its 6th year.
Concerns are growing over the mental state of the families of the Sewol-ho ferry disaster victims and even those who were not directly affected by the accident, as grief and loss still hangs over the entire nation. Many people are having trouble getting back to their ordinary lives as they feel a sense of guilt over the accident, which suggests that psychological treatment is urgently needed. In this next report, we'll take a look at how the Korean government is working with civic groups to help these people overcome their traumatic stress.
The tragic incident of the sunken ferry Sewol-ho has caused tremendous amounts of pain among the victims as well as the people of our nation. A family member of a Sewol-ho victim was rescued by police from trying to take his own life due to the unbearable shock of the ferry tragedy. Also, another family member was hospitalized after passing out from a drug overdose.
Many of the victims' families think that their mental or physical suffering might comfort them, so they are afraid of overcoming difficulties and feeling at ease again.
Ansan Mental Health Trauma Center was established for traumatic stress treatment stemming from the Sewol-ho ferry disaster. Currently, some 120 medical staff members are stationed to consult with patients. The center can connect patients with a psychiatrist if they are thought to be in need of immediate medical treatment.
Once the emotional process during a traumatic incident is registered in the brain, patients often believe the accident is happening in real life. That manifests into physical symptoms such as shock, a pounding heart, and cold sweat. At our center, we are offering individual consultation and therapy along with group therapy education program and recognition behavior therapy.
Consultants are working hard to console and provide motivation for bereaved families in hopes that they will be able to get back to their normal lives. A 24-hour psychological therapy consultation booth is also up and running, courtesy of the government. The staff members of the Ansan Mental Health Trauma Center also offer home visits for more intimate consultations with the families. Over 60% of households out of bereaved families have received psychology therapy so far. Among them, 1 out of 3 family members showed signs of a serious psychological condition. Experts say continuous consultation and regular therapy are the most important factors for treating traumatic stress. To this end, the government plans to operate Ansan Mental Health Trauma Center for the next 3 years.
So how can we help these people better cope with this situation? Earlier this month, an Israel-based international NGO, Israel Aid, came to Korea in cooperation with the Korean government to offer psychological support to the people suffering this traumatic experience. And today we're joined by Mr. Yotam Polizer, the Asia Regional Director of Israel Aid. Welcome to the program.
Thank you for having me.
So Israel Aid has been providing a psychological training for major disasters happening around the world. Could you tell us more about your activities that your group has been carrying out?
Yeah, well, you know, as we all know, Israel as a country has been suffering from trauma for the last 66 years since its establishment. And we've developed, following the Holocaust, following the war and terror, we developed a lot of special techniques in trauma care. And for the last 14 years, Israel Aid has been working in 25 countries around the world. And our main goal is not to provide treatment, but to actually give training and to empower the local psychologists, the local psychiatrists, the local government, and work side by side with them so they could provide the best support for the victims. Mm-hmm. We've been active in after 9/11, after the tsunami in Japan, the typhoon in the Philippines, different disasters around the world.
Mm-hmm. And you talked about the case of 9/11 and Japan tsunami. How long did it take for the victims or their families to overcome the traumatic experience?
Well, it really differs from, you know, how people relate to the trauma. You can't make a general statement in terms of the healing process. But what I can say is that in Japan, I was personally based for the last 3 years in Fukushima area. And I think now we're seeing a lot of good signs for recovery. Still, parents who lost their children, people who lived in the radiation zone and had to evacuate, they're still traumatized. It doesn't mean they're mentally sick. We have to make this differentiation. They still need some emotional support, and some of them need therapy. But in terms of the post-trauma stress disorder, what we find out in Israel, and that's why we developed this technique, is that it could come up 10 years after the disaster. People could suffer from flashbacks. So our goal now is to do prevention. And that's what we're trying to do now, because right after the disaster, it's very important to start giving these kind of trainings and support so we could prevent people from having what we call PTSD, post-trauma stress disorder, symptoms on a later stage, because it could come up 10 years, 20 years after.
Right. And you were in Korea for the past couple of weeks and observed the situation. How are the victims or the families of the victims coping with the situation? How are they doing?
Well, as I said before, we work with the local government task force, and we're not in direct contact with the families. However, we did meet with some of the victims in order to better understand their situation and the needs for the long term. Well, it's very hard to say at the moment. For many of the victims, as we just heard in the news, it's still an ongoing trauma. It's not even a post-trauma. They're still looking for the missing children. So it's really, really hard to define. What I can say for sure now, and the government agrees on that part, is that there is a need for very holistic support system, meaning that not only the families, but also the volunteers, the teachers, the survivors, the whole community in Ansan, and as mentioned before, the whole country in a way is traumatized by this. Who from this national trauma, who will develop PTSD symptoms, it's very hard to say at that stage.
So prevention will be important. And comparing with other disasters happening around the world, what kind of treatment or effort will be needed for the Sewol-ho ferry victims' families?
Well, I think that our goal is to provide as many techniques as possible. And that's our training. That's what our training is all about. It's about providing the local professional, the local psychologist and psychiatrist with a box of tools that they could use, and they could find out what is good for each victim. One of the methods we use a lot is expressive therapy, which allows people to express themselves in different ways, not necessarily by speaking. For some people, especially for children, or for some people who are very close to the disaster, it's hard to speak, but through art, through music, through dance, through drama, they could express themselves, release their stress, and potentially prevent future mental health problems. So these are the methods that we're introducing, and from the workshops we had so far, we had 250 participants, and we brought already 4 specialists here, and it seemed like these expressive methods were really effective for the local professionals.
And how long are you planning to stay here in Seoul?
At the moment, we're building our long-term work plan together with our local partners, including universities, including NGOs like Good People, INCRC. And we're planning to stay for at least 2 years. This is the minimum to conduct, because it's an ongoing, it's a long-term process. 2 to 3 years, I would estimate at the moment.
We do hope that the methods you introduce to our local government and local training centers will be successful in the very end. Thank you for your time today.
Thank you very much.
Good morning. Let's run through the front pages of your newspapers. And all of our papers this morning are featuring President Park Geun-hye's tearful address made yesterday. We'll start with that story on Chosun Ilbo here. And as you see, President Park Geun-hye is shedding tears yesterday at Cheongwade, the presidential office, during her national address, in which she named each of the heroes who lost their lives trying to save other passengers on board the capsizing Sewol-ho ferry. The headline at the top reads, "A government that could not protect the people at the operating table." Now, the president announced a series of strong measures to reform the country's ineffective, corruption-ridden national safety system, including plans to disband the Korea Coast Guard and launch a new disaster authority. Now, in her tearful apology, as you see here in the subheadline, Park blamed herself for the sinking of the ferry, also taking responsibility for the poor handling of the government's subsequent rescue operations. And also the paper cites 4 measures of reforms that the president spoke about. One is the government's organizational overhaul, 2, reform of the public sector, 3, safety reinforcement, and 4, a thorough investigation into the accident. And moving on to 동아일보, we'll take a look at this story here at the corner here onto the side. And the government plans to mobilize budgets spread among ministries and agencies to better cope with the aftermath of the tragedy. This headline, it reads, "Government to support with jobs for the Sewol-ho disaster victims' families." Now, Finance Minister Hyun Oh-seok, who also serves as the Deputy Prime Minister, made the remarks yesterday during a briefing on government policies that the government is reviewing ways to provide broad support for the ferry victims and their families, including medical care and job opportunities. Meanwhile, on 중앙일보, there's another story here at the bottom. We'll look at that one separately as well, regarding the response, what the victims' families had to say in response to the president's address. Now, the headline says, "Concerns expressed for possibly hampered ongoing search operation." Although some of the families did say they felt the sincerity of the president's apology, family members of those still missing held a press conference following the address by the president, voicing concerns that the plan to disband the Coast Guard could slow down the search operations of those still unaccounted for. And on a different note, we'll finally go on to the Mail Business newspaper, to this story here onto the side. Now, almost half of potential apartment buyers this year have decided to delay or drop their purchase plans until next year, or even further on, following the government's announcement of a policy to impose tax on income from property leases. And the headline says just that, 48% of potential house buyers abandoned plan after new property income tax announced. Now, this is according to a survey of 1,300 possible property buyers conducted by a leading apartment builder and received by The Daily. If you take a look at this graph separately, 37% of the respondents said they have delayed their plans. 12%, almost 12%, said they have lost their purchasing appetite. Now, the other half of the respondents, they had no change in their plans. And that was a look at your newspaper headlines for this Tuesday. And coming up are the stock numbers from Monday.
Following the pre-summer heat wave that we had, we are getting reports of rain down in the southern regions of the peninsula.
That's right. Hopefully this will cool things off for those in the southern region. We'll take a closer look at the weather conditions with Chun Sung-cho, who joins us from outdoors. She joins us from Gwanghwamun. Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning, guys. I'm reporting live by the Cheonggyecheon Stream. Today, we start off with overcast skies nationwide due to a high-pressure system to the east of Japan, slowly drifting further away from the peninsula, and this is bringing in more clouds around the central regions. Meanwhile, Jeju is receiving some precipitation up to 60 millimeters as of now, and these showers will spread across the entire southern part of the peninsula as light drizzles in the afternoon and will come to a full stop by the evening. Now let's take a closer look at today's forecast around the nation. The temperatures in the central regions remain high, above the annual average. Seoul's midday highs peak at 27 degrees Celsius, whereas in the southern regions, such as Busan and Jeju, with the lowest highs at 21 degrees, will see some drop in the mercury levels. Starting tomorrow, warm air will blow from the southwest for a while, and this will really heat up the entire peninsula. It is also expected to widen the temperature gap between the highs and lows, so be careful not to catch a cold. That's all I have for the weather update today, and now back to Minjung in the studio.
Time now for a look through our international headlines we're following this morning. For that, we'll turn to Eunice Kim, who joins us from the News Center. Good morning, Eunice.
Good morning.
The United States has named 5 Chinese people for hacking into American businesses and industrial entities.
Right. This is pretty unprecedented, Minjung. They're Chinese officers of the People's Liberation Army and part of the Cyber Intelligence Gathering Unit. And a grand jury in Pennsylvania, where those U.S. companies are based, accused the men of spying and stealing trade secrets that would be beneficial to the victims' competitors in China. U.S. Attorney General Eric Holder said in some instances the timing of the steal was particularly helpful to certain Chinese companies, while other internal data would have offered a glimpse into strategy and vulnerabilities of the targeted U.S. companies. Meanwhile, the Chinese Foreign Ministry has offered a response, coming out to call the charges extremely absurd that the U.S. was working on fabricated facts and reaffirmed that China was, quote, a staunch defender of cybersecurity. And moving on to Ukraine, it will hold its presidential elections this coming Sunday. And ahead of it, Russia announced that its forces have begun to pull back from its border with Ukraine. The Kremlin announced on Monday Russian President Vladimir Putin had specifically ordered for troops engaged in planned spring drills to return to their home bases. But the West says it has yet to see indication of any movement. Hours after the apparent conciliatory notice, White House spokesman Jay Carney said such an unkept promise was not new, and NATO Secretary General Anders Fogh Rasmussen said while he has yet to see signs of a troop withdrawal, he would be the first to welcome it, as it would be a, quote, first important contribution to de-escalating the crisis. Tensions continue to batter eastern Ukraine. 24 Ukrainian servicemen are reported to have been killed in anti-terrorism operations in the Donetsk and Luhansk regions.
And in the midst of the anti-Chinese sentiment in Vietnam, Chinese media are reporting that thousands more of its nationals are fleeing the Southeast Asian country.
Indeed, various Chinese media, including Xinhua News Agency, say that Beijing dispatched at least 4 large ships around noon Sunday, each of them capable of carrying up to 1,000 people. So they say some 4,000 Chinese workers boarded those ships on Monday, several of whom were from that steel plant that was being built by Formosa Plastics Group in central Vietnam, where at least 1 had died and 150 others were hurt from violent riots last week. And that wraps your look at the international headlines we're following this morning.
And still ahead, technology never fails to impress, and this time we'll introduce you to an impressive app that takes navigation to a whole new level. And if you like sleek, new smart toys, the Vega Iron 2 might be the cell phone for you. Stay tuned.
The Korean entertainment industry has been rushing forward without looking back, but dramas such as Reply 1997 and 1994 have told people what they were missing out on, and groups that were very popular in the late 1990s are making a comeback as well. And joining us is Im Yoon-hee to talk more about this. Good morning.
Good morning. So these two groups, right, they're making a comeback.
Yep, they are.
You know, after they disbanded years ago, people were really disappointed. They're really hoping for a revival, and that's exactly what they're going to be seeing this summer.
And these two groups are G.O.D. and Fly to the Sky.
Exactly.
And they were like the rulers of the Korean pop industry back then, right?
They really paved the way back then. So let's take a look and see what they have in store.
It's been almost 10 years, but now they're back. Earlier this year, G.O.D. announced a much-appreciated plan for a concert later this year. Celebrating their 15th year debut anniversary, G.O.D. has finally reconvened. Known as one of the leaders of the first-generation K-pop groups, G.O.D paved the way for many to come with their sold-out concerts and record-breaking tracks. But they may have set the bar a little too high, as they still hold the record for the most sold K-pop albums in 1 year. The five-member group disbanded after their 100th concert in 2006, leaving many dedicated fans devastated. But with their return, they'll be one of the few first-generation K-pop groups still in existence. But they're not the only comeback to stir the waters of the music industry this year. Korea's very first R&B duo has also recently announced their return. Fly to the Sky originally debuted in 1999, and after a streak of records and successful albums, they parted ways after their 10th anniversary album. But after 5 years of pursuing their own careers, they've made many fans happy with the news of their solo concert set for this summer. Named after their soon-to-be-released new album, Continuum, their tour, set for 3 days next month, sold out within 10 minutes online, showing just how long-awaited their return has been. It's the return of old-school K-pop with a new spin, something that has K-pop fans of all ages anxious to see what's in store.
And that old school K-pop with a new school swing that is here right now. Now, G.O.D did release a single before their upcoming concert.
May 8th, they released the Lone Duckling, which is their pre-release single, and they did say the proceeds will go to the Sewol-ho ferry accident victims.
And that does go to a good cause. And tell us a bit about Fly to the Sky. Do they have a concert coming up?
Right, so they do have a concert as well, but today they actually released their CD, or their new album called Continuum, their 9th album, and people are really excited. They did hold true to their harmonious R&B style that many people do appreciate about that group.
Okay, so they're releasing a full-length album this time.
Exactly.
All right, well, sounds good. Thank you very much for that information.
My pleasure.
All right, have a good day.
You too.
And still ahead on Korea Today, detoxing. Now, you've heard about the Beyonce diet. You've heard about the lemon detox diet. There's a lot of those out there. Cleansing the body and removing toxins. Detoxification is becoming an increasingly popular trend. From chronic fatigue to diets, we take a look at what kind of detox options are right for you. And is it really safe and good for you? We'll find out later on Korea Today.
Time now for News Sum Up. The U.S. Food and Drug Administration has given an approval to clinical trials for a new anti-cancer drug.
That's right. This drug was solely developed by a Korean research team, and clinical trials will begin starting next month. So we'll find out more from our Seo Mi-sorang, who joins us from the digital room. Good morning, Mi-sorang.
Good morning.
Morning, that's right. It's an exciting advancement for the field of Korean medical research. I'll go further into this in just a minute, but first, let's see what else grabbed people's attention the past 24 hours. President Park addressed the nation yesterday regarding the Sewol-ho ferry disaster, and among other things, announced the dissolution of the Korean Coast Guard after 61 years in operation. Meanwhile, a 2-hour-long TV debate between the two main Seoul City mayor candidates was held yesterday, and FDA approval, as we mentioned earlier, while tickets for this year's Dream concert went on sale yesterday from 8 p.m. Now let's go back to that new anti-cancer drug. The FDA just gave the green light to Medpacto, a small Korean company specializing in the development of anti-cancer drugs. And according to the company's press release yesterday, one of their drugs will undergo first phase clinical trials starting next month. Let's take a look. The drug in question is TEW7197, a molecule with a multi-pronged effect against cancer cells. It inhibits the metastasis of cancer cells, as well as suppressing cancer stem cells from the beginning and enhancing the body's immune system against existing cancer cells. Based on in vitro tests so far, TEW7197 has the highest efficacy among currently marketed drugs that work by the same intracellular mechanism. This promising new drug had been developed by the Ewha Women's University with support from the Science Ministry. In July last year, the drug was in-licensed to Medpacto with ongoing support from Korea's National Cancer Center. Medpacto aims to market the drug globally with indications in many types of solid tumors, including melanoma, breast cancer, and hepatocellular carcinoma. Switching gears to entertainment news, the ticketing war for this year's Dream concert began yesterday as K-pop fans rushed to secure a seat to see their favorite superstars. Let's take a look. The annual Dream concert celebrates its 20th year since it began in 1995. And to mark the extra special occasion, this year's concert boasts a lineup like no other. Superstar groups Girls' Generation, EXO, and Beast will join some 30 other popular idol groups for 3 hours of non-stop performances. The slogan for this year's concert is I Love You Korea, with hopes of energizing the country's youth and pulling them out of the lingering Sewol-ho ferry sorrows. As always, the concert is sponsored by the Ministry of Culture, Sports and Tourism, and all the celebrities are donating their time for a good cause, as all proceeds of the concert will go towards a public fund for adolescents. Ticket prices are very inexpensive for such a star lineup, starting at just $5 each. Dream Concert 2014 will be held June 7th at the Seoul World Cup Stadium, the same place it's been held the past 5 years. And that's a wrap up for today's News Sum Up. Please take care. I'll be back with more updates tomorrow.
Now, starting today, sales operations at Korea's 3 major telecommunications companies are resuming after a 45-day ban over illegal subsidizing. Now, this calls for even more heated competition in the already heated and competitive smartphone market.
That's right. The new kid on the smartphone block is Pantech's Vega Iron 2. And today we'll take a closer look at this product.
Pantech recently released its latest smartphone model, Vega Iron 2, and has so far been well received for its unique design and enhanced features. The display is at 5.3 inches. It also comes with a 13-megapixel wide optical image stabilization camera, as well as 3 gigabytes of RAM for improved speed. One of the features unique to the Vega 2 is its metal border.
It's not plastic produced in mold. This is an advanced metal processing procedure that shapes off metal blocks individually, and production costs are at least 10 times more expensive.
On the Vega Iron 2 metal ring, users can enjoy the specialized signature service, which allows owners to engrave letters or patterns of their choice on the metal strip. Also, the Live Up function can detect movements from the user when he or she is trying to check the handset, automatically pulling up the time and notifications. The camera has a stabilization function and many different filters that offer various effects and are easy to use. The Vega Iron 2 has so far received good feedback for its added features, which provide better convenience for users.
And to tell us more about this Vega Iron 2, we have IT columnist Kim Guk-hyun joining us in the studio with us. Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you for joining us.
Yeah, I really like this phone. Especially
You
the
do?
design of
Okay.
this phone. Yeah.
Right, especially the metallic strip.
Yeah, yes, this metal frame. This reminds me of the iPhone 5 series. Smooth and cold touch of this aluminum. It's really a joy to touch.
And
Would you
can
try?
we feel it?
Yeah,
Yes,
sure.
thank you.
And other than this metallic strip, what
Yeah.
are some special features or technologies about this?
Yeah, we better take the whole spec. Yeah, this smartphone is full of the good things, especially the spec-wise. It has a crazy fast CPU and it has plenty of room, and it's very big battery. It's really, it has a really long battery life. It's almost equivalent to that of Galaxy Note series. And one thing to notice that the manufacturer, the Pantech, is really serious this time, and they're really desperate to make this phone successful. That was the second generation of the Ion series and the fifth generation of their flagship model. Yeah, it's just a really good thing to customers.
So it's not just a pretty face, it's got a lot of different functions as well.
You know, one of the things that I like about it, the thing that I liked about the iPhone series was the fact that it felt solid. It felt like one piece unit, like a brick, right? But, you know, Galaxy is a little bit different, and they do have that very solid feeling on there. But speaking of which, the user interface on the iOS series, they're a lot easier to use, I think, than for some people than Galaxy, right? But this time around, thank you for that picture. This time around, I understand that Pantech really focused on making the user interface easier for people, so user convenience.
Yeah, again, they are really trying to make this phone as convenient as possible. So they applied a couple of gimmicks there. So for example, a functionality called the Live Up. So if you're picking up this phone from the table or putting this phone out of your pocket, it turns on automatically and shows the basic information what you need is at this time. But you know, the user convenience thing, the whole user experience thing is a tricky thing. You know, it's all about it's the matter about getting used to it. So this is basically an Android phone, and the Russian manufacturer is putting something on on top of the Android system, but basically it's just an Android phone. So it's all about the eye candy thing, but it's a nice try though.
And there's a lot of
the
customization
touch is good
functions.
also, and the resolution, I must say, it's not bad at all. It's a
I'm
picture.
pleasantly impressed, really.
Right.
But it's time to move on. There's a mobile application that could come in handy on a handset like the Vega Iron 2, and it's for indoor GPS navigation. Let's take a closer look at this GPS technology.
Whether it be places such as Gangnam Station's underground mall that comes with a sprawling and complex layout, or when you visit a new area, it is easy to get lost. It's times like this when you wish someone could personally guide you to your destination. And that's exactly what smartphone navigation applications such as Smart Inside do for you.
This service allows people to get to where they want when they're inside of buildings with complicated layouts.
Run the application on your smartphone, and by inputting the point of arrival, it will guide you with audio and vibrating signals. Using this app, you can reach your final destination faster and more easily without losing your way.
It used to be difficult to find my way around Gangnam Station, but now with this, I can easily get to where I want with this application.
The use of indoor GPS systems are becoming more widespread. They are used in public facilities such as airports and hospitals and many other fields. At department stores or large malls, indoor GPS apps have multiple uses. The app can guide the user when moving within the same floor and also read movements between floors, such as on elevators or escalators, offering more detailed directions. It's not only directions that apps like this offer. Automatic discount coupons also pop up on the smartphones, a nice perk for shoppers.
In the future, we plan to use sensors on smartphones that will be able to identify the user's location in greater detail.
GPS technology is evolving by the day, offering more options and convenience for our daily lives.
That's very interesting. We're used to outdoor GPS systems, but indoors, when there's multiple floors, how does it work?
Yeah, we already all know that GPS helps us find our location, but we have to look up into the sky to get our signal. But if we are in a walk inside the building, there is no sky. Right? But clever researchers found a way to figure out the way to find your location. We already in metropolitan area. There are full of signals. Wi-Fi signals. Yeah, if you can a certain signal, you roughly know where you're about. But if you do that calculation 3 times, you know exactly where you are. Let's think about a tripod here. A tripod. You need 3 legs to know where we are located, right? To maintain this object. So if you calculate 3 times with a Wi-Fi access point, then they exactly know where you are.
Okay.
And one more thing is that we have a very good sensors inside our phone. One is the accelerometer for our motion detection and the gyroscope for our directions. So they incorporated those 2 sensors to calculate exactly where you are moving ahead.
And even if you're outdoors and can see the sky and whatnot, but you can still get lost in between small alleys. And does this application help you get through those alleys?
Yeah, that's right. Indoor positioning would be the least concern if you got lost outdoors, right?
Right.
Yeah. In the case, I recommend you to prepare general map applications such as neighbor maps or dial map that were released from the major internet company. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you. I'm definitely going to download this application. It's available on most smartphones.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, but if you're lost inside the building, but you better be serious and take a look at those are smart inside, and they'll tell you exactly where you are located, even inside the building or underground.
So you don't have to worry about getting lost anywhere, and you'll have a little map of a mall that you're in, anywhere you go, right?
Thank you for your time this morning.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you very much.
And good morning to you all. Now, it's always scary starting something new, especially in a new surrounding. But for former MMA fighter Dennis Kang, there's nothing scary about his new life here in Korea. I had a chance to sit down with the super Korean Dennis Kang himself on his new life here in Korea. Now, a lot of people here in Korea might call him Julian Kang's older brother, but for a lot of us MMA fans here in the nation and around the world, we call him the super Korean Dennis Kang, and he joins us here today on Korea Today. Dennis, thanks for joining us.
Pleasure to be here, man. Thank you.
You know, you have this new gym now here in Korea, nice gym, and you know, you decided to start this new life here in Korea in Seoul. What made you decide to do that?
Well, you know, everybody knows I've been fighting for a long time, and you definitely can't do this sport forever. So it felt like a natural progression for me to gravitate towards the coaching aspect. It would leave me inside the sport of MMA while still being able to coach and not have to compete all the time.
I know this is a tough question, but you know, when did you start deciding, well, it's time for me to call it quits as a player and now start this new life as a coach and a trainer?
Well, it's been, you know, off and on over the last few years. And one of my old coaches told me, if you're even questioning whether you should still retire, whether you should retire or stay in, then for sure you need to get out, you know? So, you know, over the last few years, my heart hasn't been fully into fighting, you know? So I really wanted to do something where I would give back to the Korean MMA scene, and so this is it.
You have a new dream now. You have a new goal here in Korea. Tell us what this goal is.
Well, I really, like I said, I want to bring up the level of Korean MMA. I think right now it's already at a very good level, much better than before. And I think with the experience and with the knowledge that I have of international training, not just in techniques per se, but also in knowing how to train people, coaching methods that I've learned from training, you know, all over the world. I really hope that I can give a big push to the Korean MMA.
What are some of the things that you realized or noticed about your students these days at the gym? I mean, how are they passionate about mixed martial arts?
You know, the first thing that I noticed is that Korean students pick things up much faster than the other students that I've had. I think they've got a more technical mind and a better aptitude for details. You know, it's like when I show techniques, there's a lot of details and little nuances that go into it, and the Korean students always seem to pick it up with less repetition than other students have. It's very good. Like I said, I do stay very hands-on. All the classes are taught by me here.
One of the things I realized about Korea these days, less and less kids are actually attending Taekwondo classes, and instead they want to train mixed martial arts, but at the same time, you know, there might be parents who are a little bit, you know, scared of sending their kids. But I mean, if you could, you know, send out a message out to the parents and what makes mixed martial arts so good, and it's not all about, you know, beating people up.
No, of course. And let me say first and foremost that Taekwondo is excellent for kids. If I had a child, which I hope to have one day, I would definitely put him in Taekwondo a little bit, just so he learns kicks and the discipline that comes with it. But MMA is much more oriented towards a sport, and it offers a much more realistic style for self-defense. And you're right, it does seem a little bit more violent, but you have to tailor the training for the children. For example, the children at our school will not be doing any hard sparring. They'll mostly be doing agility drills, and light, simple techniques. When they get around 13, 14, that's when they'll be doing a little bit more intense sparring.
Definitely, there's a lot of popularity for mixed martial arts gyms out here. If you could send out a message for any potential, students of yours on, what makes mixed martial arts so special, this is your chance.
Yeah, well, mixed martial arts will get you in shape physically, but also mentally. They say BJJ, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, is like human chess, So not only will you learn, how to physically challenge yourself, but you'll learn how to think strategically, So for business people, this is very important. And let's just admit it, it's just fun.
There you have it. Of course, your new goal, new career here in Korea as a coach, as a trainer in this new gym, the Dennis Kang, Jiu-Jitsu gym, whatever.
Yes.
You'll be learning Jiu-Jitsu, boxing, all that stuff.
Everything.
Best of luck to you, Dennis, once
Thank
again.
You.
Hope for the best. All right. Once again, that was Dennis Kang for the latest here on Korea Today.
Detoxification is becoming a popular trend these days as a method to rid body fatigue, skin diseases, and also as an option to improve functions of the liver. There are detox juices, lemon detox, basil seed detox, and other cleansing methods using food. And there's also a spa method applying red ginseng extract all over the body and putting it under steam, adding to the many dozens of other methods. Now, it's said to deter aging and help with diets. We look more into detoxification and some of the methods.
All right, those are some of the more technical detoxification methods.
Fancy.
You get the assistance of clinics and such, but I'm used to the original, the master cleanse, where you just drink nothing but lemon water for like 10 days.
Detox,
And
right.
failing miserably at that, right? So we're going to be talking about detoxification today, and joining us is Dr. Alice Hyungyong-dan from Samsung Medical Center. Good morning.
Good morning.
And also Dr. Nam Dong-woo from Kyunghee University Korean Medicine Hospital. Good morning.
Good morning. Now, detox is something that's been around for many, many years, decades, even centuries, I'm thinking. Tell us about maybe the history of detox.
Exactly, Min-jung. So detox is a centuries-old medical concept that probably started in ancient Egypt, and it was continued in ancient Greece through Hippocrates. There was a thought back then that the body needed to be rid of what they called bad humors or toxins from foods and the environment in order to stay healthy. I would like to point out, however, that the average lifespan back then was actually 35 years.
Wow.
And so obviously detox didn't help anyone live a long, healthy life. And I can say that the same is true in the age of modern medicine. Detox has not really been shown scientifically to help anyone live longer or healthier.
So it doesn't help with the elongation of your life, but yes, Dr. Nam?
Well, because detox is a more traditional medicine-centered concept, maybe the opinions on the effectiveness is different for Dr. Tan and I. But in Korean medicine, is not because the lifespan was 35 years. Maybe it was other aspects that would affect the lifespan, but it's very effective treatment. And we have case reports or clinical trials reporting the various benefits of detox.
So then the question is, how does a detox exactly work? What is the mechanism?
Well, so the premise of detox is that there is a specific toxin that's causing a problem in our body. And for whatever reason, our body is not able to eliminate that toxin on its own. And so we have to take deliberate steps to get rid of that substance. However, as I said, this has not really been proven as a medical treatment. There are instances when we need detox as a necessary treatment, and that would be when there's been exposure or ingestion of a true toxin or poison. And that would be the case of, say, alcohol overdose, cocaine overdose, or say like pesticide ingestion or iron overload. In those cases, then you indeed true detox to get healthy and get, regain your health.
So I guess, detoxification, it basically came from the thought that we take so many preservatives and all these other artificial flavored products, and that we're trying to detox our bodies off of that. It's kind of like going to a sauna after a night drinking, to detox your body with that.
That's one way of doing it.
Exactly, that's one Korean way that my father always suggested. I don't think it worked, but we'll find out a bit more about the detoxification methods out there.
In Western medicine, in order to determine which detox method is most appropriate, an in-body and skin analysis is carried out, as well as examinations to determine whether there are mitochondria disorders or infections from a deficit of essential fatty acids. Depending on the patient's condition, an analysis of electromagnetic frequencies using a device called OnDemed can be carried out, or oxygen therapy called Arirang, as well as the option of mitochondrial prescriptions. By undergoing in-body treatment which stimulates circulation through high-frequency energy, patients can purge toxins.
If there are more toxins than the standard level, people need treatment to help the toxins exceed the body. And if it's that people cannot protect their bodies well enough from these toxins, we can use fluids or equipment to allow detoxification in the long run.
Recently, in Korean medicine, a method which combines India's Ayurveda and Korean medicine has emerged.
There are various toxins depending on the body type and disease you have, so there's a method of making people sweat it out or removing it through blood extractions. There's also the option of carrying out enemas or taking Korean medicine to purge toxins.
In order to remove the toxins within the blood, doctors may draw out toxic blood. To detoxify the intestines, where 70% of the body's immune cells are, Korean herbal medicine and Ayurveda oil are mixed in and injected into the rectum to draw out toxins and body waste. There's also oil therapy, where you apply Ayurveda oil to the body in order to more easily bring out the toxins embedded in the body tissue.
Well, I'm contemplating being on a detox diet of sorts myself, but
Diet? I don't think you
are
need
there
a diet.
different groups of people who can benefit more from detox?
Well, people with pain or fatigue or maybe skin problems are the most beneficial for people. And in Korean medicine, we use the wet cupping therapy, which we prick the vessels and apply highly negative pressure on the surfaces to suck out the bad blood, which is called ohyur, or dead blood, bad blood. And this will cause stagnation of the blood and also pain and excessive heat in the body.
It's what we call puhwang in
Yes.
Korean.
The little suction cups, right?
Right. How about you, Dr. Don?
Well, we need to ask the question, what are you trying to achieve through this detox? Is it sustained weight loss? Well, we know that fasting and using very restrictive diets may work in the short term, but not in the long term. It usually actually leads to weight gain in the long term. Also, are you trying to get healthier? Are you trying to have a better lifestyle? Getting enough exercise during the day, eating a clean green diet with 5 servings of fruits and vegetables, lots of fiber, lean protein, whole grains. That has actually been proven to help people stay healthy and prevent cancer, prevent cardiovascular disease. So I would direct people towards that method rather than any detox plan.
I get the feeling you're a little skeptical about this detox business.
Okay, so here are some of the detox methods that are out there. Commonly, you can find information about these on the internet and such, right? Okay, now this oil, there's a method called oil pulling. I believe a Vietnamese monk originated this, and then what you're supposed to do is get like an amount of this oil and just gargle it, or basically.
Yeah, so you're supposed to take a tablespoon and hold it in your mouth for about 10 to 20 minutes. There is no really scientifically proven benefit to this. However, there can be severe harm if you accidentally inhale some of the oil. It can get into your lungs and cause a potentially fatal condition called lipoid pneumonia.
Really?
That's because the fats cause a very severe inflammation of the lungs. So I don't recommend it.
Uh-huh.
That we don't have it here, but I heard that there's basil seed detox, and we can eat it with water or yogurt. So could you tell us more about that?
Well, basil seeds, when they meet water, they tend to blow it up like 5 or 6 times its original size. So it'll make you feel full more quickly. So it'll help lose weight. And also when it meets water, it produces sticky substances on the surface, and this sticky substance will help activate your intestines to your active bowel.
To basically get all
the toxins out.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, well, there are different types of people. Young sweats a lot, and
I don't sweat a lot.
What are these things coming down
No,
your
okay, it
face?
gets hot in the studio.
I get cold easily. Are there different types of detoxes for different types of body types?
Yeah, I don't mean to harp on the semantics, but I really don't like the term detox per se because there's no toxin that's causing these symptoms. In an otherwise healthy person, if you've got, excessive sweating or cold intolerance, that's, it's just a symptom. It's not a problem caused by a specific toxin. So detox really doesn't make sense for that condition.
Okay, so we have the for and the skeptical.
Right, so this is an interesting battle. All right, we'll just have to leave it there. And that brings us to the end of this edition of Korea Today.
All right, and we will see you back here tomorrow morning at 7 a.m.
Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Doctor.
Thank you, Doctor.
Thank you. Thank you.